Hi, it's SpiltModCo3 here, and today I'm going to be teaching you how to improve your game with the new Battlefield 2042 specialist, Crawford. This video will be broken up into 3 sections: the best way to use his abilities, playstyles and strategies, and finally loadouts that I would recommend. I'm also going to mention a few counters to his gadgets and how to best play against it. But just before we get into it, I would like to remind you that these tips are from my personal experience of playing with him and are only my opinion. So if you have your own tips, you are more than welcome to comment them down below. Anyway, without further ado, let's start off with section 1. Abilities. Crawford's main gadget is his Vulcan minigun, which is a deployable turret. I wouldn't say it's overpowered because although it has immense damage capabilities, using it does open you up to attacks from behind and above. Also bear in mind that although the minigun does have cover built into it, there is a space through which enemies can shoot you, which makes you particularly vulnerable to snipers who can easily land a headshot. The minigun also has unlimited ammo, which is really useful if you're holding a position. However, it does heat up, so if you fire it for too long, the gun will jam and have to cool down. So to easily combat this, all you need to do is fire in bursts, allowing the gun to cool down in between each one. This also lulls the enemies into a false sense of security, making them more likely to peek. However, the longer you shoot the gun for, the more accurate it gets, and the smaller the spread becomes. So I'd also recommend, if you're shooting from a distance, to use the second method of firing, which is to keep it going until the gun almost overheats and then allow it to cool down. You can even leave the turret and continue to fire with your primary weapon while you're waiting for the gun to cool down. For positioning, I'd say that the best locations are where there's a small area to shoot, as generally you're going to have more cover around you. So instead of setting it up in the open where you can get sniped from any direction, I'd suggest this, which allows you to focus all of your attention on one point, so you can easily suppress enemies and defend against pushes. It also means that enemies are unable to fight back, because if they peek you to shoot, you can just gun them down. You can also use the turret as a little bit of extra cover if someone's shooting you or if you're trying to stick a revive, but do bear in mind that it's never going to be as good as Irish's cover. Okay, before we move on to the passive, let's quickly mention the counters to Crawford's minigun. Mainly I'd say grenades are going to be your worst enemy, especially incendiary and frag grenades. So I would say maybe get a squad mate to be Irish so he can put down his APS 36 projectile interceptor, so all grenades thrown at you get destroyed. However, the minigun does completely block missiles fired directly at it, and although it does get destroyed, you won't lose any health, which is very useful in some situations. Now, there isn't a lot to say about the passive, but as Crawford is part of the support class in Battlefield 2042, he can revive anyone on his team, and when he does, he resupplies their gadget slots. But I want to mention, don't feel pressured to stick a res right away, especially if there's quite a lot of enemies around. Just make sure you ping the down person to let them know you're coming, because if they don't, they're gonna get impatient and then redeploy. Okay, moving on to the second stage of the video, playstyles and strategies. In my eyes, there are 2 main ways of playing Crawford, because personally I think his abilities are very viable in Battlefield and should be applied in specific situations with specific gadgets. Okay, the first playstyle is very obvious, and it's when you focus most of the game on defending objectives and positions. For this, I'd recommend an ammo or med crate, as it's unlikely you're going to be defending this position alone, so the ammo can be used by your teammates. And for the grenades, I'd have the smoke or proxy grenade, because enemies will either get spotted by your sensor nade and you can gun them down, or if they find you first, you can use the smoke grenade to block lines of sight. The second situation is personally my favourite way of playing him, and in my opinion is more fun as well. Because the minigun can easily be picked up after a very short delay and then redeployed, Crawford is ideal for crowd control. I know it might seem crazy, but if you stick to tight spaces with choke points and areas that you can carefully control, it's very easy to rack up kills. For example, the side sections of the boat in the map Stranded are the ideal place to set yourself up for some quick kills or assists. However, the beauty of it is that when your position gets compromised, you can easily move to another spot and set yourself up again. Because you're moving around and not focusing on defending the actual objectives, it's very easy to control the flow of battle and prevent enemies from even getting near them. For this, I'd recommend incendiary grenades, as they allow you to block off doors for a while or at least damage enemies trying to push. Okay, and finally we have the loadouts. Because Crawford doesn't really stick to a particular playstyle, you can pretty much take any weapons with them and do just fine. But to be honest, you're probably better staying away from super close range and super long range weapons, so I'd recommend against snipers and shotguns. Personally, I'd take an assault rifle like the SFAR-M grenade launcher because it has the ability to excel at mid-range combat, but can also be used at close range too, if you're in a pinch. The grenades also add some usefulness and once again can somewhat control the flow of battle. And if you really wanted to be in the thick of it, I suggest you take the K30 because it can be fitted with an extended drum mag and it has got kind of medium range capabilities. However, if you really wanted to take a longer range weapon, I would strongly recommend the BSV-M because of the fact that you can switch between single fire and full auto, making it more viable in battle. All of these guns I would equip with scopes with varying range and both high power and extended mags, and at least one suppressor. Thanks for watching guys, and I'll see you on the battlefield.